Hello and welcome. Thank you so very much for joining me here tonight. My name is Karima Akila, and I am the founder of the Genius School. And I want to welcome you to the How To, a small group series to answer your unschooling questions. So today we are talking about next school year. We're talking about self-directed learning. If you are shopping for next school year, you may be looking for the right curriculum, the right fit. And I'm here to tell you that the right fit is sitting right there in your home. The right fit is your child. So today we're going to discuss how your child is the right fit and how they are the guide to follow to lead you to what you really want. And we're going to discuss that today. What is it that you really want? You know, it's very interesting. It's the kind of thing that I don't know if we as parents really verbalize what we really want, but it's there. And so through our discussion today, I'm going to ask you to think about and to be honest with yourself, to think about what is it that you really want. All right. Before we get started, however, let me share a little bit about who I am and why in the world am I even having this conversation with you. So the picture on the left there depicts my family. Maybe that was probably about 10 years ago or so. And that is how it started. I have 6 kids and I have 4 boys and 2 girls, and I had 6 kids in 12 years. We began homeschooling when my oldest was, well, we officially began when he was 5. However, we began teaching and learning at home from birth. He has a December birthday, which meant that he could not start school until the following December when he would have been 5 by September 1st. Problem is, he learned how to read and began reading by the time he was 4. And for him to have to attend kindergarten at that time, kindergarten was more of a true kindergarten 20 years ago, where children were expected to come to school to learn how to read, not coming to school already knowing how to read. So for him, he would have been bored. And a Black boy at that time living in Baltimore City, that may have been a little problematic. So we decided to keep him home and to continue what we had already started, to continue homeschooling him. So we quickly added to the family, and you can see there by what's going on in that picture that it was always something. That little guy whose face I'm holding, he is now 15, and he's my little firecracker. And yes, someone was always crying in a picture. My daughter Joy, who was sitting in my husband's lap, you see her reaction now in the pink shirt over there to the right. So that's how it started. And back in 2016, back in 2015, actually, my husband was diagnosed with leukemia. And it's interesting, that diagnosis came shortly after we made the switch to unschooling, and I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. And so that year of battling leukemia really solidified our self-directed learning practices because I was gone. I was at the hospital, and the older 2 were teenagers, or at least old enough to be home with the kids. And so without interference from mom, they were able to learn in complete total freedom. And that probably ushered us into self-directed learning really quickly. After a year of battling cancer, my husband passed. And so we had another year or so, a year plus, of grief and figuring out life. And so this is us to the right. This is how it's going. I've graduated 2 from unschooling, with the third, the tall guy in the back there. He will be graduating this fall. and it's a very lively bunch. I began my career in education as a public school teacher in Maryland's public schools. And then when I came home to be a stay-at-home mom, that's when we began our homeschooling journey. And then throughout our talk today, I'll share with you how I came to unschooling. Through that process, I discovered that it really is a transition to go from a school way of thinking to a self-directed learning pedagogy. And I realized what I wish I had, which was someone right there to hold my hand. So I created a business that allows me to do just that. The first company I started was called the Love of Learning Company, where I consulted families on how to create this type of environment in their home. And as a result, families began saying to me, hey, can you start a school? Because, you know, I have to work full time, but I really do want this way of living and learning for my kids. And that is how the Genius School was born. And you'll hear more about that a little later. So let's just jump right in. And so I want you to utilize the chat feature because I want to make sure that I can hear everyone's question and make sure that I'm giving everyone the time that they need in order to voice their concern. So utilize the chat. So regarding your child or your children's current learning experience, what's not working for you and your kids? So in order to do this, what I'm inviting you to do is grab some paper and a pen. And we're simply going to title it, What's Not Working? What's not working? And I want you to draw 2 lines so that you'll create 3 columns. And then I want you to, on the left-hand side, put in here, what have you and your children already been doing in this area? So you can title it Already Doing. And in the middle column, I want you to title it Already Have. And then the last column on the right, I want you to title that one Already Been Being. Okay, so I'll give you a few minutes to do that. Okay, so now let's go ahead and let's be real honest with ourselves and let's fill this in. First of all, what have you and your children already been doing in school and with learning? What are you already doing? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend that I am me, oh, maybe about 10 years ago. Oh boy. All right, so I'm going to create the same list. So I have doing on the left, I have the word have in the middle, and I have being on the right, okay? So you guys work and I'm gonna work, and then go ahead and type your answers in the chat just so I can get a feel for what everyone is experiencing. All right, so 10 years ago, what I was already doing was I was already doing lots of worry. No, yeah, I was worrying. Let me tell the truth. I was worrying. I was teaching to my curriculum. I was researching curriculum, looking for the best fit. That's what I was doing. Let's see, what else was I doing back then? Let me see what you guys are putting in the chat. Yep, you're already worrying. That's what you're doing. You are using curriculum. You are falling behind. I see that. Yep, that was me. That's what I was doing. I was falling behind. The curriculum, right? The curriculum says it's lesson 27 that you're supposed to be on, but what was I on? Lesson 13. And why was that? Because, you know, I had all these little ones and trying to trying to maintain school. That's what I was doing. I was doing school at home. Oh boy, that should have been at the top of the list. I was doing school at home. Yes, I was. Oh, you guys, you want to know what I did? I had the children dressed in uniforms. I did. I had them dressed in uniforms and I had them sit around the dining room table in their uniforms. I even had a little bell. I would ring the little bell and the kids would come downstairs. And then I would ring the little bell in between subjects. So that's what I was doing. I was doing school at home while I was in the middle of birthing and nursing babies and getting the package from the UPS driver and squeezing in doctor's appointments and looking for whatever my husband said was on top of his desk, but really wasn't. And taking out the chicken, at 5 o'clock that's frozen, expecting to have dinner ready at 6, right? That's what I was doing. Okay, so make sure you complete your list. Okay, now, what do you already have in this area of school and learning? What do you already have? Well, now remember, I'm pretending to be myself 10 years ago. So I'm going to speak in that time frame. Present tense, 10 years ago. So I already have tension. I already have worry. That's what I have. I do have lots of assignments. I sure do. I have books piled up. I have tons, and I do mean tons of curriculum, tons. I was the curriculum queen. I already have lots of, let's see, what do you guys are, what are you putting in the chat? What do you already have in this area of school? I already have kids that are apathetic. Oh my goodness. They were compliant, but they were apathetic. That's probably into the who we've been being. I should probably put that over there. We'll get to that in a minute. What else do I already have? Yeah, I mean, we had tons of assignments. We were doing assignments. Oh my gosh. School at home was just on the completion of assignments. You couldn't hold a stick to us. So what do you already have in your area of school and learning? You might say that I already have kids who are late to school. I already have, kids who are missing assignments. I already have arguments. I already have whatever that you already have in this area. Now we get to the juicy part. Who have you or your children already been being? Now, when I say who have you been being in this area, meaning how have you been feeling? Okay, so I've already been worried or fearful. I've been afraid that they're falling behind. I've been afraid that I won't teach them what they need to know. I have kids who are apathetic. They have just lost a love of learning. They're just completing assignments and that's it. That's all that they're doing, just completing assignments. Let's see who have I been being? I've been being angry. I've been being burnt out. That's the word. That's the word for me. I have been being burnt out, resigned. It just was not good. You know what? I'm going to go a step further and tell the truth on myself. I have been being depressed. Yes, I was. My children, who have they been being? Frustrated. They were frustrated. The kids that learned differently than how my curriculum told me to teach, they were frustrated. And they were resigned. They had kind of given up, but they were compliant. I'll write that down. They were compliant. Yes, they were. What about you? Who have you been being? Tell the truth. Who have your children been being? So far, we were being worried, fearful, apathetic, angry, burnt out, depressed, frustrated, and compliant. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your predictable future if nothing changes. If you don't do anything new in this area or anything different, if you don't transform learning or what education can look like, this is how it's going to be. And unfortunately, this is how it has been for far too long. But don't worry, I didn't bring you here to leave you here. I brought you here just so that you can get a full, real sense of what it's really been like. Now, what's missing? What's missing as a way of being that will make a difference? Okay, now I want to be real clear here. Just look at the list that you have there on being. I'm not talking about if your kid is in school, I'm not talking about what the principal should do, what the teacher should do. I'm not talking about what the curriculum doesn't teach. I'm talking about what's missing as a way of being, as a feeling state for you and for your children that will make a difference. So underneath that, write down what's missing, especially underneath the column of being. Draw a line and write down what's missing. Now look at what you wrote under being. And when I say what's missing, I don't necessarily mean, what's wrong. I mean, what's missing that will make a difference. Look at what you wrote. For instance, I wrote down worried. I was scared. Let me just tell the truth, right? I was scared that my kids would not have a love of learning. And so what would inspire being scared or fear? Confidence. So confidence is missing, was missing for me. All right, if my kids were being apathetic, what's missing that would inspire being apathetic? Apathy is when you've just given up. So what's missing that would inspire apathetic? Instead of them being apathetic, perhaps excitement. If they were excited about what it is that they were learning, that would inspire them. That's what's missing from apathetic. Oh, angry. Oh, that's a good one. This is where, go ahead and pull out a thesaurus. Go ahead and that's a word people don't use nowadays a lot, right? A thesaurus. Let's go ahead and look up some antonyms of some of these words. That's what I do sometimes. If I can't quite come up with the right word, I go to my trusty dusty thesaurus and I pull up an antonym. And let's see what we get. An antonym for angry, ooh, look at this, would be calm and peace. Oh, peace was missing. Being peaceful. Oh yeah, that was good. Burnt out. I was at the end. Relief. If something is burning, put out the fire, extinguish it. Relief was missing. Depressed, joy was missing. Ooh, I wonder what is the opposite of frustrated? Because I surely was being frustrated, that's for sure. Okay, so look for yourself and see what you come up with. Okay, so when I looked up frustrated or to frustrate, the opposite of that is facilitate, to make it easy, ease and flow. Oh, that's a good one. That was missing from frustrated, ease and flow. Oh, and then compliant. My children were being compliant, right? They just sat down, they just did whatever it is that I asked them to do. They were being compliant. And so the opposite of being compliant would be to be independent, maybe. Independent was missing, or like a self-starter. like that executive function, right? Where you own it yourself. So ownership was missing. Mhm. What do you have that's missing for you? What's your list? Here's my list. What was missing for us in our learning experience that would have made a huge difference, that did make a huge difference, was, and this is just a sample: confidence, excitement for learning, peace, relief, right? The pressure was gone, joy, ease and flow, independence, ownership. Here's a good one: love. There was no more love of learning. Love was missing from our learning. Can you? Oh, that's good. I'm gonna write that down. You all can't steal it. If you steal it, you got to give me credit. Love is missing from our learning. What difference would love make? Love is missing from learning. Love is missing from learning. Well, I get to tell you what difference that makes, because when we plugged it in, we got a chance to see exactly what was missing. So let's go ahead. So what's not working, we got that. We got all that from your doing, from what you already have to who you've already been being. All of that is what is not working, right? The worrying, the teaching to the curriculum, feeling like I'm falling behind, the attention, all of the assignments, that was great, but the fear, the burnout, the depression, the frustration, the anger, the apathy, the worry, the complacency, all that wasn't working. And what's missing is confidence and peace and joy and ease and flow, independence and love. And what I want to share with you is that self-directed learning is that bridge. And so before we talk about that bridge, what difference would it make for you if you or your child had what was missing in your learning? I want to go back. What difference would that make for you if you had that? Well, the difference that independence, let's take that. What if independence in learning? Then they wouldn't have to rely upon me. They would teach themselves. They would be self-starters. What about excitement? What would being excited make available in learning? Well, if we were being excited, then that apathy would be gone. Then I would see that light come back on in their eyes again, and they would be eager to learn something. And then what about ease and flow? My curriculum and being a slave to the curriculum meant that there was no ease and flow, right? There was no grace period, because the curriculum said that we were supposed to be on lesson 27. And I don't care if you didn't get lesson 17, but we got to move on because the curriculum says. Now, I know that sounds funny, right? Because here I am at home, homeschooling. You would think that I would have taken advantage of the freedom, but I didn't. I didn't, because I had it that the curriculum is going to get me what I really want. Remember, we asked that question, what do you really want? And I didn't allow myself to give myself what I really wanted, because I thought that the magic was in the curriculum. When the magic wasn't in the curriculum, the magic was seated in the chair where my child was seated. That's where the magic was. So I just want to pause for a minute, and I want you to pick one or two and really imagine what life would be like once that thing that's missing is plugged in the world of learning and school for your kid. Really sit with it for a minute. And then now let me show you that self-directed learning is the bridge to get to what's missing. What exactly is self-directed learning? Or it's also called unschooling, or it has many names, or it might be called delight-driven learning. In the school system, the closest thing to it is inquiry-based learning. So what is self-directed learning? I know you've heard a couple of different things. Matter of fact, put it in the chat. Let me hear what you have come up with. Okay, yep, allowing the child to do whatever they want to do. Yep, I've heard that. What else? Following their interests. Yeah. Okay, what else do you think? What else have you heard? Teaching according to their learning style. All right. Okay, we're going to talk about that. Okay, keep sharing in the chat. Now let's look. What is unschooling or self-directed learning? SDL or unschooling is non-compulsory learning. Self-directed learning is built on a belief that humans will acquire knowledge as a result of curiosity or when they see the relevance of such knowledge. The self guides the when, the what, and the how of this acquisition, thus making the child the curriculum. Couple of key things I want you to own in on right here. The first, the first pill to swallow is in the first sentence. It is non-compulsory learning, which means that nothing in the world of self-directed learning is forced. Nothing is mandated. Nothing is coerced. Instead of coercion, instead of compulsion, instead of mandating, self-directed learning trusts that humans are naturally curious. Yes, your little humans, even your bigger humans. Yes, it believes that your 13-year-old is still curious. I know you may say, well, she used to be curious when she was like 3. Maybe even 6, she was curious. But somewhere around the time she was like maybe 10, by the time you're in like 3rd grade or so, that curiosity, we didn't see that anymore. And the question is, where did it go? Where did it go? I love the word curious. Where did the curiosity go? So self-directed learning is based upon this belief. And just to make sure that we are all on the same definition of what curiosity or curious means, it means, are you ready for this very simple definition? Eager to know or learn something. The word there is eager. So you're saying that the last time that you saw eagerness to learn something was when your child was little. And eager means wanting to do or have something very much. So the last time you saw your child was that they wanted to do or have some knowledge was when they were younger. A lot of times it happens. We see it in younger children before they start school. Depending on the child, depending on the school, it may linger. Oftentimes, the light of curiosity dims and fades out altogether well before that child reaches middle school. Again, depending on the child and depending on the school. So at the root and the base and the heart and the nugget, and at the end of the day, I'm trying to think of any other idioms that mean the bottom line. This is what self-directed learning is: non-compulsion and curiosity, and the self guides, the when, the what, and the how, the self. And therefore, your child is now the curriculum. Your child is now the curriculum. Curriculum is just a fancy word for guide. Your child guides what they learn, when they learn, how they learn. I can already hear your questions. Now, how do we get that? How do we get that? How do we get this self-directed learning or this unschooling way of being, way of living? It is over the bridge of deschooling, right? And so that means that you go from a schoolish expectation and you cross over this bridge. Now, let me tell you something about this bridge called deschooling. What's the longest bridge in the world? Whatever the longest bridge in the world is, your deschooling bridge could be that bridge, or it could simply be not even a bridge at all. It could just be like a step. It all depends on how tightly you hold on to schoolish expectations. Now, to be clear, do you remember who I was before I started homeschooling? That's right. I was a public school teacher. That means, that's right, I was professionally trained in schoolish expectations. I know you've heard of great expectations, but I'm here today to talk to you about schoolish expectations. And I mean, I was good at it. You heard me say I dressed the children in uniforms and rang the bell, right? Okay. So for me, the deschooling bridge wasn't necessarily a long one, but boy, was it shaky. Like some of those planks were missing. In some places, it wasn't a bridge, it was like a tightrope. You're walking above crocodiles and you're snapping at your feet. That type of bridge. That's the kind of deschooling experience that I had, right? But I am happy to say that we finally landed in the world of unschooling. And it's the kind of thing where you make the decision, right? You look at your predictable future and you look at what you're already doing, what you already have, and more importantly, who have you been being, right? The depression, the frustration, the anger, the fear, the worry. And you say, enough's enough. There's got to be something better. And when you make that decision, you're taking the first step away from schoolish expectations because you're leaving what you've been doing and what you already have. And a lot of that would be a schoolish way of learning. And the minute that you turn away from that, you have automatically begun the deschooling bridge. Now, funny thing about this bridge, it's like a bridge to the clouds because you kind of wake up one day and you're like, oh, wait, you know what? I don't have those feelings of anger and burnout and depression as much anymore. I don't have them. Where am I? I'm not in the land of school. Oh no, you are now in the land of unschooling and in the land of self-directed learning, when what was missing, the confidence, the excitement, the peace, the relief, the joy, the ease, and the flow, when that is now present. And when you have that more readily, now you are in the world of self-directed learning. It's amazing how this bridge is not you have bridges to nowhere. This is a bridge to somewhere, but this is a bridge where you don't quite know that you've arrived until you look around and you realize, oh, the depression and the anger and the fear and the worry, that's not there anymore. Where did those guys go? And in its place is the confidence, the excitement, the peace, the relief, the joy, and the love. And the love. Indeed, the love of learning. So, what then is next? So, that bridge, let's see what's next. Let's talk about that bridge of deschooling and exactly what deschooling is. Now, my good friend, Akila Richards, has written a book, and the book is called Raising Free People. And in the book, she explains deschooling is defined as the opposite of schoolish expectations. And in her book, she defines it as shredding the programming and habits that resulted from other people's agency over your time, body, thoughts, or actions. designing and practicing beliefs that align with your desire to thrive, be happy, and succeed. I highly encourage you to check out her podcast, Raising Free People. Fare of the Free Child, actually, is the name of the podcast, Fare of the Free Child. I'll go ahead and put it in the chat for you. And she does an amazing job of really walking parents through this previous schoolish way of being and thinking. And so that's what deschooling is. It is the shredding, it's a process, it's a bridge. Remember, it could be a long bridge or it might be a shorter bridge, but it's the idea of letting go of it, letting go of that programming and those habits, and giving yourself and your child agency over your time, your thoughts, your actions, your body, and designing practices and beliefs that align with that, especially when it comes to learning. She goes on to say, and I love this quote, a lot of times people see deschooling as decolonizing or post-colonial parenting. She goes on to say that post-colonial parenting made and makes sense to me because it says simply, how I parent is heavily informed by my decolonization work. If I viewed my children, please hear this. If I viewed my children as fertile land to shape and design without the partnership of their own choices and curiosities, then I would be colonizing that land, those children. I would be the oppressor in this instance. So the idea is that a schoolish way of thinking does not take into consideration the partnership of the child. When we went to most traditional schools, when I went to a traditional school, they never asked me what I wanted to learn. The curriculum said what it was I was supposed to learn, and when I was supposed to learn it and how. And nowhere did they ask me about my choice or my curiosities. Maybe, in one class I could choose to read this book and do that book report, or read this book and do that book report. What if I didn't want to do a book report at all? No one ever gave me that opportunity and that choice. And so this is the process of deschooling. But what about, so now let's get into it. What are your concerns? Yeah, buts, I'm not too sure about. And I already know what you're going to say, but go ahead and put it in the chat. Okay, yep, I see the first one right there. But if we let the children learn what it is that they want to learn, then how will they know what they need to know? Great question. And I dare to tell you that the answer is found in the question. How will they know what they need to know? The key word here, key words are they need to know. Who is the they that we're talking about? We're talking about your child. Who are they? And once we figure out who they are, then we can figure out what it is that they would need to know. How do you figure out who they are? Well, we can figure out who they are when we invite them to learn according to their curiosities, according to their interests. And then we figure out, you know what? I have a musician. That's who they are. I have a farmer. That's who they are. An artist, a scientist, a programmer. I have a community activist. That's who they are. Because every time I allow them to learn something according to their interests, this is what they always do. They always come back to something in this realm. Maybe this is who they are. And when we allow children to do that, we can look back and connect the dots. For instance, my 17-year-old, when he was little, he would sit on the ground, on the grass, and he would follow bugs and beetles. He was always outside in the dirt. He didn't mind being dirty at all in the mud. He was always very curious and wanted to research things and wanted to study things. And he loved animals. One day he discovered National Geographic. And National Geographic had these animal sounds. And so at the time there was a huge field behind our house. And he got the speakers one day and opened the window and turned the speakers out towards the field and played various different animal calls. Before long, one day we were eating lunch and we saw this huge bird swoop down around our house. And I mean, it was so huge that its shadow, like, made a significant shadow on the wall in our kitchen. And I said, what is that? And he said, oh, that's just the peregrine falcon that I've been calling. What? Son, I think you might be altering the ecosystem here. I don't know how healthy that is. He or she may be looking for a mate that does not exist here. Okay. I'm not sure if that's safe, but this is who he was. Fast forward to now. In my dining room, you've heard of farm to table. Well, I have that in my dining room. Half of the dining room has been overtaken by Zion's plants. I believe he's told me that he is growing tomatoes inside until they're strong enough and the threat of frost is over, and then he'll transport them outside. I have sunflowers that he just brought in because it is cold tonight. Let's see, there's all types of herbs and whatever else. So Zion wants to be a farmer. And he is, the other day I came downstairs and the smell of deer molasses. Oh, what you say, you didn't know that there was such a thing called deer molasses? Yes, I'm here to tell you that there's such a thing called deer molasses. And the scent of deer molasses greeted me as I opened my bedroom door. Why, you ask? Because Zion was creating some type of soil something, and I'm going to get this all the way wrong, some type of nutrient something for his plants. And in order to do this, I came downstairs to my kitchen and he had rocks, boiling rocks. Thought he was making stone soup, for those of you who know that story. But he had rocks boiling in one of my good pots. That's another story for another time. And deer molasses was mixing in with some organic-like material. And he was so excited. Remember I said what was missing was excitement? He was so excited that he had finally researched and developed the proper mixture for his plants. Zion taught himself everything that he needed to teach himself to be a farmer. So how will they know what they need to know? If we say love is missing from learning, when we allow them to learn what they love, then they will have a love of learning. And in the process, they will learn everything that they need to know in order to be who they are supposed to be. Okay, let me see another one real quick. Oh, okay. So, but what about algebra? Like, who's really going to want to do algebra or grammar? Like, who really is ever going to want to learn what in the earth a dangling participle is? Well, the girl next door right here, my daughter, Joy, she is an artist and she decided that she wanted to redo some old fairy tales. So she wanted to redo the illustrations and rewrite the stories into something that, she gave the outcomes that she wanted. And she came to me one day and she said, Mom, can you help me with grammar? Because, I'm going to need to know how to do that in order to write these stories and have them be really good. She wanted to learn about dangling participles. Yes, she did. Then you might say, well, who's ever going to want to learn about, like, my kid is never going to be curious about algebra or trigonometry. Like, who's ever going to want to be curious about that? So further down the hall, I have a young man down there who is 15, I think, and he wants to be an electrical engineer. And he said, Mom, in order to do electrical engineering and to get into college, I am going to have to learn algebra. I said, yeah, you are. You're right. And I asked him, I said, and do you, how would you like to go about doing that? He said, well, right now I'll teach myself. We have some books downstairs. I'll use Khan Academy. I said, okay, great. So we are checking with them once a week. Hey, how's it going? Do you need any help? No, it's going great. I'm good. Okay. So after about maybe 9 months, he came to me and he said, okay, I think I need a tutor now. And I said, okay, great. We'll get you a tutor. So yes, the yeah buts, the what ifs. Someone does want to learn a dangling participle, and someone did want to learn about algebra. And you heard me use that other word in there, college. But what about college? I have a whole another talk explained about unschoolers in college. And so meet me there for that one, and I'll explain that. Now, you may be asking yourself, one of your but what abouts and yeah buts may have been, okay, so, but I don't want to sit at home with my kid and do this stuff. There's like anybody doing this, getting together and doing this. Well, yes, we are. It's called the Genius School. And we are getting together virtually, and we are getting together in person in brick and mortar buildings in multiple cities across the country. So what in the world is the Genius School? Well, as the definition says there, it is decentralized, democratic, and self-directed. Self-directed, meaning you just heard what self-directed is. Democratic, children come together to make a vote on what happens in the school. Decentralized, no one central curriculum. Every child gets to self-direct themselves in a group. And where we have synergy, that's where they get to direct themselves together. So we have synergy in art, then all of the artists get together in what we call the art corporation, and then they choose what it is that they want to do individually and collectively. When we have tech students, like the guy who wants to be an electrical engineer, all the engineer or tinker people may get together. Folks who are learning coding and C++ and such, they may get together and form a corporation. That's what we call those little synergy groups of interest. We call them corporations. And they get together in their corporations and they create stuff, program stuff, build stuff, and so forth and so on. So what on earth might a day look like at Genius School for a self-directed learner? Well, in the building and virtually, we come together in our spawn point. This is the one out of 2 times of the day where students are grouped by age. The Genius School is a K through 12 school. So your 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds may come together with their facilitator, and then older elementary, middle, and high school will come together with their facilitators. And we have our morning intentions. That means you state what it is that you intend to do that day. Maybe later that day, we have a set the week meeting where at this school meeting, the different corporations discuss what it is that they're doing that week and put it up on a master calendar. During the set the week school meetings, we also talk about the awarenesses. What are we aware of that's not working? And then what would we like to implement in order to make it work? So what's missing that would make a difference? And then we implement that, and then we practice that, and then we master that. And both of those are visible in the building for everyone to see. Throughout the day, the corporations mix and mingle. Imagine the university model. So you may have children of all different ages gathering together to do something in the art corporation, or all different ages together in the music corporation, all different ages together in the cooking corporation, making a tasty snack for the whole student body to enjoy. All ages coming together in the woodworking corporation. Of course, each student would have to be certified in order to use the material in each corporation. And so if you're not meeting with the corporation, maybe you are taking a math class, or maybe you are swinging on the swings, or maybe you're eating a tasty snack that the kitchen corporation just made, or maybe you are reading a book, or maybe you're working on your own personal project. So that all of that is happening all throughout the day. Then we also have what's called the 5-pillar invitation. 5 pillars are unique to the Genius School, and these are invitations where students are invited to figure out, number one, what is their genius by knowing themselves. What are you good at? Then you may be invited to learn about practices that help you maintain your mental and emotional well-being. Pillar number 3 is learning how to make your own money. Pillar number 4 is metro journeys and traveling. Pillar number 5 is knowing how to serve your community with your genius. So solving problems in your backyard. And so that's the 5-pillar invitation that students are invited to, and they can choose to accept that invitation or decline. And then at the end of the day, we end the day just as we started it, back in those spawn points where we have reflections. Reflect upon the intention that you set that morning. How did it work for you? What do you want to do differently tomorrow? And then my favorite part, what is it that you're grateful for? I've been moved to tears with the gratitude circle. So in between all of that, the day could be filled with anything there that's on the bottom of the screen, including dual enrollment classes at the community college, or playing outside, or maybe if you're on a metro journey, that means that you are traveling in your local community and you may be shopping. You may be at a bookstore listening to a talk, or at the university. You may be at the Genius School watching a documentary. You may be working in the garden that we have there. You may be cooking. You may be talking, you may be resting, you may be playing, you may be thinking. That is what could fill your day at Genius School. Each Genius School will offer makers and co-working space to the community. This partnership brings additional revenue to the Genius School and offsets parental tuition. So imagine during the day time the Genius School students use this co-working space and the maker space. Also imagine that parents and family of the Genius School members can come in and work at the co-working space. Imagine that you may walk across the hall and join your child in their corporation discussion of whatever. And then in the afternoon and evenings after the Genius School students have gone home, this same building now doubles as service to our community. So you want to join us? We'd love to have you. Open enrollment begins very soon. Just contact us either at thegeniusschool.org, or you can email us at info@thegeniusschool.org to learn how you can have a Genius School in your own backyard, where self-directed learning happens every single day. So before I let you go, I want to go back to one question, and that is, what is it that you really want? What is it that you really want? I'll get to that in a second, our next small 2 group. What is it that you really want for your children? And when you look at the list of what's missing, I think you might see some of the things that you really want. At the end of the day, we tell children, go to school, kindergarten through 12th grade, get good grades, learn something, hopefully that they learn something about themselves. Because when they graduate high school, they have one of 2 options so far. 1, they can go right into the workforce, or 2, they can go right into college. Yes, some children now are taking this beautiful thing called a gap year where they travel or serve and volunteer. So we'll include that as option 3. Then after option 1 or 2, take option 1. So you're working, you're in the workforce, and you're earning money and living for yourself. Or you have option 2, where you go to school to learn a trade or some type of profession. And then once you graduate from college, you will land a job, or you will start a job where you will be serving the community and in return, receiving compensation for yourself. And so if at the end of the K through 12 experience, and whatever happens at the end of that, those 2 things remain: service and what you receive in the form of compensation. If, and I said if, because there are some people that might see something outside of that, but if that is the goal, to serve others and then to receive something in the form of compensation for your service so that you can take care of yourself, then if that is the goal, why not allow our children to have a taste of that as early as possible? a taste of serving others, solving problems for others, using the best part of yourself, your genius. Why not learn how to do that now? And that's what self-directed learning makes possible. So I just want to go back and see what is the next small group discussion. The next small group discussion, ooh, how do you unschool reading? Oh, that's a good one. How do you unschool reading? I will tease you by saying that my youngest guy, who's 10, he has never, ever, ever heard me say, come sit down now. It's time for you to learn how to read. It's time for your reading lesson. Never heard me say that. But he reads, he's fluent, and he is the best speller in the house. How did that happen? Without me ever, ever telling him to come and sit down and read. That'll be next up on the small group how-to series. So again, I want to thank you for joining me. Again, my name is Karima Akila, and I am the founder of the Genius School. And it has been my privilege to be with you this evening. Please make sure that you share this in your networks. It is my aim to help as many people as possible. Thank you so much.